Okay, Sarah, really nice to see you after you participated in EnergyInc program last year. Could you just give a quick background on you and kind of coming into the program? What were you doing up until that point?
Sure. Well, I guess I had already quit my corporate job. I was working in consulting basically from the time that I graduated university, and I'd been in that field for I think like 13 years at that point. And I realized that it was time for something new, and I kind of had a few ideas of problems that I wanted to solve, and had already started my own business, specifically to help small businesses be more sustainable. So my mission is to make sustainability more simple for small businesses, because I always worked with the really large end of town, helping them around corporate social responsibility, and really found that small businesses were missing out on that whole transformation and all the benefits that that brings to a business, because they just didn't have access to people like me as a consultant. So I kind of was dabbling, I guess. I was creating some of my own IP and kind of being an independent consultant in that space when I really saw an opportunity present itself that a number of different councils were actually, well, a number of organizations really, were all trying to solve a problem, and we're all creating different resources for their small businesses. And I was just realizing, that's crazy for them to duplicate that work when they probably don't even have that much resource and expertise to do it in the first place. So I realized there's a real opportunity here if I can get these organizations to come together and fund to create a platform that they can all point their small businesses to at the same time. So that was where I came into Startup Bootcamp, was with that particular platform idea.
Thank you. So a bit of a transition from consulting to entrepreneur. Tell me a little bit about what you expected and what you found.
I think as a consultant, I really was, one of the reasons that I left the big corporate consulting was I felt very frustrated that I wasn't able to invest the time that I wanted to, because with that paid by the hour kind of model, it really limited any investment in creating resources and things like that. They're a little bit more time intensive, but can pay off in the long term, right? So I really saw, okay, I need a different business model here. Consulting isn't going to allow me to solve the problem that I want to solve. So I guess that's why I went into the whole startup world. But it took a complete mind shift for me as a consultant to then learn about a completely different way of operating, because I'm so used to being valued for my expertise as opposed to being able to demonstrate the commercial viability of this entire business. So that was a big struggle for me, yeah.
Tell me a little bit more. You get paid, I guess, to solve problems, to be insightful, and then you're turning to use that insight to create a business. Big change or a transition?
Oh, it was a complete change, because I guess, I've always just been paid for my expertise, and I'm not commercially minded. So I just loved to be able to help people and to advise people and to give good recommendations and help people understand how to achieve the goal that they were going toward, because I had all the answers. And then suddenly in the startup space, you don't have any of the answers. It's all kind of I would say mystery, but it's also kind of a game. It's kind of a series of tests and experiments to see what's actually going to work. And it's all about, I guess, finding evidence that your business model or your particular solution is in demand and people are going to want to buy it. So that was a really big mind shift for me, to stop operating from assumptions, because as a consultant, it was always my job to be certain about something, to say, this is the answer to your problem based on my expertise and what I've seen work in other businesses. Therefore, here's my recommendations. And that was what people paid a consultant for, was that confidence and that credibility. Whereas all of a sudden, I had to be doing the opposite. I had to be testing every potential assumption that I had, including, people say that they have this need, but will they actually pay you money for it? And a lot of people were saying that there was a need for what I wanted to create, but I just really still haven't necessarily been able to validate that the small business customer is ready to pay me for it.
So I'm interested, you talk a lot about that entrepreneurial mindset and what you really gained from the program. You give me a bit of an insight as to how you're using that going forward, and where you see that being useful to others in your network.
Yeah, I think I feel like I'm using it every time I'm speaking to people and encouraging. I'm sort of sharing the idea of, how are you testing this? How are you confirming your assumptions? How are you running experiments to see if you're surprised by the answer even? Because I think the same thing goes whether you're going into, coaching or like creating a spiritual business or something like that, really understanding your customer very well to see what are they thinking in their brain? What do they really need from you that no one else is providing? What are the frustrations that they're currently experiencing? And actually being very open when you go into a conversation, asking more questions than you are trying to fill in yourself. There's the consulting default mode is to bluster and, let's just say, BS your way through any meeting with a client. I think there's kind of a joke in consulting that you just have to be 10 minutes ahead of your client. And so you need to really get rid of that mindset completely. Stop trying to show that you know everything and really ask good questions, challenge your assumptions, seek as much information from everyone that you're speaking to, be that potential customers or from people who know the industry really well, or even just people who know startups well, to test every assumption about the solution, about the business model, about your channels to market, about all of those different aspects of your business, because you don't want to fully commit in one direction and then realize that you didn't have one of those assumptions correct.
It resonates with me that leadership has moved from knowing the right answer to knowing the right question. And I think that also is true to some extent of the consulting world.
Yes.
As well. It's proof of pudding, isn't it, when somebody gets the checkbook out?
Exactly.
So let me just step back a moment and just say and ask, as you went through the program, you've clearly had a journey. Were there any 2 or 3 kind of highlights, key insights that you've learned through the program that you think would be beneficial to other people contemplating going through that process?
Definitely. One of them is that, testing, validation, iteration process. I think that is a really important skill set to learn if you are going to go into a startup, because you really do have to test and validate all of those. Everything that you're doing when you're starting a startup is a guessing game. So you can't either throw your own money and time into those guesses if you don't know that they're going to pay off, and you definitely can't expect someone else to be investing their money into your guesses if you really can't back them up. So that was particularly useful about the whole startup bootcamp process, as well as getting the business model, the sort of frameworks and conceptual models around the whole lean startup space. I think I have now found so many other uses for those same ways of thinking around understanding your lean business model and your customer value proposition and the customer jobs and the benefits and all of these things. That applies to any sort of business, whether or not you end up starting a high growth startup. It applies just as well to starting your own independent consulting firm. It applies just as well to the kind of path I might end up going down instead, which is more just, online courses and coaching and masterminds and things like that. It's all the same, understanding your customer. Yeah.
Beautiful. So when we think then about that journey never stops, that constant sort of testing, validating, I'd like to just ask you a few questions about your challenges and goals and how this year, in the year following the program, how that's playing out.
Yeah. Definitely not in the way that I expected. Through the course of Startup Bootcamp itself and then following it, I think I've recognized that the solution that I want to build, there isn't enough demand for me to go get investment, build a team, put money into the whole tech platform build. So instead I've kind of been looking at how can I solve this problem in other ways? That's I guess one of the best lessons to learn from Startup Bootcamp is fall in love with the problem, not the solution. So I am trying to get creative about how else I can help to solve that same problem. And that is looking like it might be working with other startups, for example. So partly through the process of getting to do EnergyInc and all of the showcase day with the recording of the pitch and having that online and having all of the sort of social media around that, I think that generated a bit of attention in what it was that I was talking about. So I've just been having a lot of interesting conversations, and also even someone who maybe didn't see that, but I'm able to send them the video of like, this is what it was that I've been talking about, and they're going, oh wow, that's really similar to the kind of thing that we're looking at, so maybe we should talk. So that's, I guess, the direction that my year right now is going, is potentially working with other startups who are kind of in a similar space and being able to bring my depth of knowledge on the sustainability side to add to their commercial and technical expertise to be able to actually create something instead of trying to build my own thing and kind of having that, my baby ownership of it. And yeah, looking for ways to collaborate more with other startups.
That's exciting to hear, because we see the job of building the ecosystem. If you're in the ecosystem and networking, we get there quicker, and we're in the race of our lives to make some fundamental changes. Could I ask then, if you had other people either coming from the consulting sphere or from different walks of life, are there any pieces of advice you might offer? Is it such a different journey that everybody's got to discover themselves, or any advice coming into that possible option of going through some kind of program?
Yeah. I think, that piece about fall in love with the problem, not the solution, is one of the best pieces of advice that I've learned through the program. And I think, especially for a consultant wanting to make that shift, I guess, to entrepreneurship, you kind of have to forget everything you think you know. Because you have to be able to provide that evidence, and you need to be able to prove it to yourself as well. So embrace the testing model. You want to be testing your idea with everyone that you come across. Maybe that can be, it doesn't have to be potential customers at first. It can be, peers around you, colleagues, things like that, who kind of know the space. But don't protect your idea. I see way too many people in kind of the startup space saying, oh, someone's going to steal my idea. But if you're the right person to make that idea a reality, then forget if there's potentially bad people out there. you're the one that's going to make that idea successful with your own skills. So I think that for any consultant going into the entrepreneurship space, I encourage it because it's a lot of fun, and the people that you meet in the startup space are really, I find, really generous. People in the startup space tend to really want to support new entrepreneurs and tend to want to, provide mentorship, make connections for you. So yeah, it's a really, really positive space, and I definitely encourage anyone to go into it. Yeah.
Lovely. I share your view. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning. A friend of mine said, firm views loosely held are a great way of thinking about that. Test and hypothesize. You've got to be able to argue a case, come to a conclusion, but be open to other ideas, as long as you can validate it.
Yeah.
I just had another question about really where you're up to in your journey now. It's now 4 months since the program concluded. What's next for you in the immediate 3 months moving forward?
It's a very tough question because it's kind of up in the air right now. Immediately after EnergyInc, I did another pre-accelerator program, which was a very different style. It was a lot more light touch, but I put in a pitch at the end of that and got runner-up in that pitch competition. So that was very much thanks to EnergyInc because of the amount of support that I received in developing the pitch through the course of EnergyInc. And I think following that, I've just been having so many conversations about what it is that I've wanted to create that I've actually had 3 even other startups kind of in that space speaking to me about how we can be collaborating a little bit better. I'm also speaking with a membership association about being able to support them to provide the resources to their members instead of it sort of being my own platform over here. How can I keep creating the learning materials, the stuff that brought me into the space in the first place? I'm passionate about making sustainability more simple, but also more accessible for small businesses. And that doesn't have to be on my own platform. I'm very, very happy to find other ways of delivering that, be it through a membership association, through another startup, or my intent is also to provide courses and masterclasses and coaching and things like that on my own website so that I still have that mix, I guess, of consulting and passive income through my own website, basically.
Thank you. Together with the right leadership, we get there much quicker. Thank you.
Thanks.